Uh, this would be Vision Part 2. I'm not sure how many parts this is going to have. Just have to bear with me. We talked to you about the Army of the Lord, going over that place, the Batikas Lagoon, and splitting up. Took me nearly 10 years to understand what that meant. The other part of the vision took only a couple of years. I went to a Baptist group at the time and mentioned what had happened. They saw you have a nice imagination, and then they also reiterated to me that God doesn't work like that anymore. We have the Bible. It's kind of like a form of deism, but yet they were against deism and denounced guys like Newton, who was a deist and a scientist. It's inevitably a bad combination. But of course, the fundamentalists are waiting for a second coming, which is somewhat mechanically the same thing as deism, and that it's going to come flying through a physical cloud, and maybe it's going to come through a window with a robin red-nest ostrich and a bag of fruit. Okay, well anyway, this army marches out of the Gate of Issachar in the south. Later on, I find out. And it goes to a gate up in the north in Alaska. And this gate is called Joseph. Now, for those of you who maybe may or may not have any biblical background, there's a verse that says, "For no promotion cometh except from the north." Well, Joseph's possessions was in the north, according to the Old Testament tradition, and Judah's possessions were in the south. And of course, there were some tribes outside of that, which were also in the south, on the other side of the gate, and that I think was a reference to possibly Benjamin, and I forget who the other tribe was. It was a split tribe where Benjamin had Manasseh and Ephraim or something like that. Anyway, this army goes up to the north to the gate of Joseph, and then makes a turn and goes to the central gate in the south, which is the gate of Judah, which roughly is about like Dallas, Texas. Interestingly enough, Waco, which is sort of like backwards behind Dallas, like 100 some odd miles, was where a ministry that you may all be familiar with, named David Koresh, who identified himself as the branch, which is a reference to a David or a branch Davidian. Well, ironically enough, the gate of Judah, or Judah, the tribe of Judah, is what David was a part of. But this thing that I'm talking about, these gates and this visions that I had, happened quite a long time ago. I'm 52 now, so, and this is the year, 2007. So these things happened for me nearly 35 years ago, when I was about 17. So back then, if the Branch Davidians were around, at least they were in the public limelight or news. So the Army of the Lord shifts from there and goes out through the Gate of the East, which I was shown is was actually some reference in I think in Ezekiel, called the Eastern Gate. I asked what it was, and many times I was told the Gate of Reuben, though to me it seems like a contradiction. It should be some other name. I was given the names of the other gates that are in the United States. There are two in Georgia, of course, two in San Diego. The other one in San Diego was Zebulon. It's in the Pacific Beach area, which, of all things, I looked up the word Zebulon, and it means beach cities. It's amazing how these coincidences happen with these things, that there's just no way I could have concocted all those names and have those things match up like that. It'd be one or two things be one thing, but a whole host of different things that match up. And there are two gates in the north. There's a gate of Levi, in, I think, the gate in the state of Washington. And ironically, there was another man of God that I don't need to mention his name, but he worked in that area. And when he was in the gate of Issachar, at one point I had mentioned that he had the ministry of the gate of Issachar, and he was very surprised that I knew about such a thing. He said, how did you know that? And I said, well, gee, how do we know anything? You know, I didn't read it out of the newspaper. So then this army of the Lord basically breaks up into many different groups and goes to England and South Africa and this and that thing. But what does that generally mean? Well, for a long time, of course, I thought it was some actual event that was going to happen, but actually it's an ongoing event. And the gate of Issachar is the teaching gate, and from there they'll move up and go as if through these steps, you know, Issachar, Joseph, from Joseph to Judah, and out through Reuben. More or less signifying that, of course, it's probably more or less a throwback to even to Genesis, that the 6 days weren't days but steps. And the word patience, the patience of the saints, is not that I tolerate, say, insubordination or stupidity from somebody within the ranks that's supposed to know better. That's not quite the same thing. The patience word has been misappropriated, mistranslated. It just means steps to achieve, either some sort of maturity in different areas, whether it be, spiritual growth or education or what have you. Like it says in the book of Revelation, for here is the patience of the saints. It sort of says it in a different context, gives a different spin on the word patience. So these, I guess different angels and stuff like that exist throughout the planet, as well as demon things, of course. It's the bad and the good. But a lot of that stuff can be turned around if, once again, I'm getting my soapbox. Once again, if the church, you the Christian out there, starts to wait on God, learns what prayer is really about, stop deluding yourself with nonsense and, we went to the church meeting, I see these guys put on such a performance, we just worship you, God, and I just love you. And I mean, what total bullshit, I encountered a girl from one group one time and told her she was going to turn her corner in life and then she was going to have to go somewhere. Oh, it was very upsetting because, I thought the will of God was cream puff time. Let's go have coffee and let's get high at the church, except, we used to all get high some other way, so now we got some other way to get high, and we get very theatrical. And don't get me wrong, I mean, some of the things that happened to me got very theatrical as well, and for many years I had to put many things off and regarding the presence of God because it got too much. Finally I made a deal and said, don't let it come around until I'm using it for other people. And in the group situation. So I don't know if what I've just told you is necessary to a witness of my life or what have you. I guess you usually want to hear the usual stuff. I prayed, I was a sinner, and I opened up my heart and all that stuff. Well, I may have thought all those things, but I didn't necessarily go to a church to do it. And then this sort of stuff happened to me. I didn't go looking for it, and that's an important issue. My ministry, whatever it is, however you understand or how I understand, was cast from heaven. I didn't go looking for it at the altar or some ministry. It doesn't mean if I went to go study that I'm out of order. It just means that the initial program was cast from heaven. And probably a lot of those things could apply to you people out there too. Time is up, and I think this is it. Part 2 is good enough.